Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Nona, full name Lobna. I started recording just yesterday, and before I share some of my first reflections, I just wanted to touch on one thing that I said when I made my introduction. I introduced myself and I said that I am nobody, right? I'm simply an ordinary person. And it's important for me to present myself in this way, especially as I share these reflections, for a couple of reasons. Firstly, I don't feel like I'm somebody that is not worthy of love. I don't have low self-confidence or low self-esteem by any means. But I think a lot of times when people step into a position of knowledge or in a situation where they might be standing and presenting in front of people as like a scholar or someone who is presenting on a specific topic, I want to tread very carefully not to let my ego get in the way. So I don't want people to say that this is Lobna and this is Lobna's story and it's unattainable or unachievable. If anything, I'm coming with a humble heart, and the reason why I want to share is I lived a life where I had a really difficult time finding connection, feeling like I'm someone that can receive not only redemption, but have a beautiful relationship with the Lord. And so as I walk through these stories, I kind of want to be a muted personality, meaning I don't want it to be about me. I want to share these reflections to help inspire you along your journey to recognize that what I've done to activate my heart and to awaken my spirituality and to create that bond and connection with God is something anybody in this world can do at any stage or point, even if it's their final breath. Just turning back and realizing that God is so loving and so patient and just waiting for us to turn back to Him. So I never want to get in my own way, and I never want people to look at me and say, I can't relate to that story, I can't relate to that person, or what is she doing and I need to learn it exactly according to how she did it. No. So I just wanted to explain that before I moved forward. So today I just kind of wanted to share a little bit about the journey that led me into having this beautiful relationship with God, because it's something that I feel anybody can do. The problem is we live in a world that's so overstimulated and we're being pulled and called in different directions at all times that it becomes work to try to find time and space to sit and pull yourself away from all of that stimulation just to really check in with yourself. And so my husband and I'm going to talk a lot about that beautiful relationship because he has helped me and really supported me in finding this beautiful path that I'm on. But we started meditating together, and that was a very important step along my journey to where I am today. Right? Like you see all this like new age movement where people are spiritual and they're focusing on the divine and the universe, and I'm not here to talk down about anything, but I take something away from everything that I come into contact with or learn. But there's meditation. And so my husband and I started meditating a lot and meditating together, and it's something I do on a regular basis, and it's absolutely crucial for me. I crave it. And I remember, when I was sharing with a friend that I meditate, she didn't understand. I'm not judging her. She didn't understand. She said, y'all just need to pray. You need to lean into God. And so that judgment piece struck my heart. Right? Because we're judged all the time. We judge ourselves more than we judge other people. But that judgment piece really sat with me. And so my husband said something that was so beautiful. And he said, prayer is me talking to God, right? When we're in prayer, it's always like, God, help me. God, give me this. God, give me clarity. Save this person, save that person. Give me some sense of direction. So we're constantly doing the talking, which is beautiful. But he said meditation is me sitting and listening to God. And that really hit home. Because I've always been a deep seeker. And I think all of us, God created us intelligent beings. So he wants us to sit and he wants us to ponder. So when it comes to even like looking at like any sort of religious scriptures or literature, there's going to be dual and multiple layers of meanings behind it. You can take it at surface level and it won't be wrong. But God also talks to us in depth and layers depending on how deep into the oceans of wisdom and curiosity and knowledge and connection we want to make. So you can look at something and read it literally and it's beautiful, but then sit with that same idea and question it. And if you go deeper and deeper, it comes to life and you receive a completely different essence and layer and level of understanding. And that's what meditation did for me. So when I first began my journey of, okay, you know what? I've pulled away from the world. I'm sitting in seclusion right now. I can't interact with people. I'm throwing myself at God's feet. God, help me. Save my child. What did I do next? I initially started working on my physical practice. I perfected my prayers. Now, when I say the word perfected, it's obligated that we do 5 prayers a day. I was very timely and very regimented and very regular with my practice of praying 5 times a day. But rather than just go back to what I did when I first got introduced to religion as a child, of learning to pray and learning to fast and learning to read Arabic and all the things that we're taught to do, I started adding a little bit more intellect into it. But why? And so the first question that I had is I sat into contemplation and I said, in every faith, everyone is seeking for God. I'm searching for God, but God to me was something and someone or some being out there. But then I reflected on a verse in the Quran that says that God is closer to us than our own jugular vein. So I'm sitting there one day in my backyard and I'm looking up at the stars and looking up at the sky. And as a meditator, I understand that there's an inner realm and then there's an outer realm and then there's a connection. I started thinking that God is an artist. So everyone is seeking and searching for him externally, up in the heavens, up in the skies. And I'm not saying that that's wrong either, right? But there's also a way to access God internally. So then I sat with myself. If my body was the universe, there has to be some place that I can access God. So Islamically, we believe that the center of the world is the Kaaba in Mecca. And you'll have people who get so literal and they'll take a look at the globe and they'll say, no, it's not exactly in the center of the globe. It might be a little bit off-centered. It doesn't matter the technicalities of the location, but spiritually, it is the center of the Islamic faith, right? So then if I was to look at what the Kaaba is, like what it represents, we're not worshiping a stone. We're not worshiping, a house. It's a house. God can be accessed anywhere. I could look anywhere and access God. I could access him in my car. I could access him in Saudi Arabia. I could access him in America. I could access him at work, anywhere, laying in a bed. I can access God anywhere. But God knows that humans need direction. We need a focus to divert our energy towards. Okay. So then I said, all right, so the Kaaba is the house of God. And that's the direction when I'm standing on my prayer rug that I'm facing to have a conversation with God. Externally. Internally, where can I access God? Where's my center? And so I reflected on the 99 names. God has 99 names, but they're ultimately attributes. And we look at the names, God is merciful, compassionate, loving, all-knowing, all-seeing, right? So those, a lot of them are things that are tied to some form of emotion. Someone who's all-loving. Where can I access love? Someone who's all-merciful. Where is the center of my mercy, my love, and my compassion in my human body? Take Lubna, any human body. It's in the heart. So what I ended up doing is I said, okay, so if the center of my body is my heart, and the center of the world where I'm facing and worshiping my Lord is the Kaaba, right? The Kaaba is the house of God on an external level. where's the internal house of God? My heart. So when I was a kid, I was always very, very emotional. But I rode the wave of anger and resentment and fear and all of these things, right? But it was in the heart. So then I said, okay, well, the temple of God within my body is in my heart. So I need to sit in that temple. I need to start purifying it. And that's what they say, or that's what they mean when they say that any true change happens internally. And so I realized and recognized that if I wanted to have a personal and intimate relationship with my Lord, I needed to connect with him right here. But in order for me to feel the essence of God within my heart, I needed to purify it. And so I sat and I started working on forgiveness, on feeling worthy, on repenting, right? Because repentance is a gift to us. Because I sit there with guilt and shame that I've done these things that are not good. It only affects me. So if I start purifying and saying, I'm not going to go back to that action, I'm not going to raise my voice, I'm not going to do this particular deed that I know is harmful to others and harmful to myself, then I start living out some of those beautiful attributes and qualities that God has defined and explained himself as. Being loving, being forgiving, being merciful, being giving. So as I began my journey, that's where I started. In the heart, inside the self. And I realized that the throne of God, right, is inside the heart. So I invite everyone who is listening to this that wants to have that intimate awakening and connection and start hearing with their spiritual ears and seeing with their spiritual eyes and feeling with their spiritual heart, sit quietly with yourself and envision a mirror and a reflection of yourself and say, what do I see? Who am I? And where do I need to work? And as you start lifting and sifting through those old layers of the self and anger and fear and resentment, all the things that come with it, we call it shadow work, and start filling yourself with the number one thing that really wakes that God essence within you, gratitude. The more grateful you can be, the more you access God, and the more you really start lifting veils and receiving and seeing things from different dimensions. And I say higher dimensions, because you start being an observer. And the more you observe yourself and the condition of the world and observe scripture and understand why things have been ordained upon us, or why there are things that are allowed and things that are forbidden, you really start understanding God and receiving and perceiving things from higher dimensions. And that's where the magic really begins and it becomes so mystical. So I invite you to first acknowledge that God is accessible and he lives within each one of us. But in order to access God and activate that connection, you need to sit within the self. I can't wait to continue sharing some of the deeper reflections I've had once I've made that connection and that realization and started my journey. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.